David Facer. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank William Athey and Amy Taylor for their work with the Chamber Advocacy Committee, who is kind of the spearhead for this evening. I also want to recognize David Pace from East Idaho News, who will be the moderator tonight. And I also want to thank the candidates who will be here tonight and just thank them for not only being here and joining us tonight, but also for putting themselves out there. I know it's a great sacrifice of time and time away from family and so forth, so we're grateful for that. Officially, the Greater R-Idaho Falls Chamber of Commerce is politically neutral, but we place a great deal on civic responsibility and the exchange of views and different ideas in a respectful manner. So again, thank you for coming, and I'll turn the time over to David Pace.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you to the candidates especially for coming in, for all your hard work and preparation in running these campaigns and your service to the public. My name is David Pace. I'm here with EastIdahoNews.com, and we'll start off by explaining the format for tonight's event, as well as the rules by which it will be run. We will begin tonight with 3 races. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement. We will then proceed to the questions, which have been prepared in advance by the Chamber. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. We'll rotate who starts. William Athey, Chair of the Advocacy Committee, will be our timekeeper here in the front row. When he shows a white paper, you will have 30 seconds left, and when he shows the blue sign, your time will be expired. If you continue to speak after your time is expired, I will have to cut you off at that time. At the moderator's discretion, if a candidate is mentioned by name, they can be given 30 seconds to respond if that seems appropriate at that time. But in the spirit of civility, we recommend that candidates focus on their own platform and ideas rather than attacking other candidates. Let's see. At the end of each round, we will finish with our closing statements for 2 minutes, and then we will proceed to the next race. Sound good? Awesome. So we'll start off with our first question. The first question deals with education, and this is a 2-part question. The first question is, what legislative steps would you support or oppose with regards to public school funding? And we'll start with Kelly and then work our way across.
Were we going to do opening statements, or we weren't?
Oh, I am so sorry. Yes. We'll begin with your opening statements. So I apologize for that. Thank you.
You want Stephanie to start?
Sure. Stephanie, would you take the opening statement?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Mickelsen, and I've been married to my husband Mark for 36 years. We own and operate a farming business here in Eastern Idaho. I have 4 children, and I have soon-to-be 17 grandchildren, all under the ages of 7. And of all the names that I get called, Grandma is by far the most special to me. I love this community and have had many opportunities to serve as trustee for the College of Eastern Idaho, Idaho Farm Bureau Federation State Director, RMAC Board of Directors, Bonneville County Republican Women President, and Bonneville Jefferson Groundwater District Chair. Most recently, I've had the privilege of serving as your state legislator for Bonneville County. With my time in office, I have supported historic tax cuts and worked with Governor Little to cut unnecessary red tape. We've fought to keep the federal government out of our homes and our businesses. My constituents want safe communities, and I've supported legislation that punishes those who bring fentanyl into our state and those who commit crimes against our children. My constituents want good public schools. I voted in favor of school facility improvements, increased teacher pay, and I'll oppose any attempt to funnel your tax dollars to private schools. Thank you all for being here, for Paul Baker, and for the Chamber for putting this together. This is democracy in action, and I'm looking forward to a vigorous debate tonight.
Thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and East Idaho News for hosting this. My name is Sean Crystal. I'm one of the candidates for District 32A. I'm born and raised in Idaho. I was born in Pocatello, grew up in the Shelley area, and currently live in Ammon, raising my family out there. I have a 2-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. And we've been delighted to call Ammon our home. It's been a wonderful neighborhood that we live in the old Ammon town site. I got into the race because I was just tired of feeling like Idahoans were disenfranchised by our representatives. Too often I've watched Idahoans voice their opinion in favor of a certain topic, and our representatives turn around and vote completely opposite. So I want to get back to giving a voice to Idahoans, working on pragmatic solutions to real-world problems that we're all facing, dealing with our education, dealing with the infrastructure that we're outpacing very quickly, and getting to work for our citizens.
My name is Kelly Golden, and I am not an Idaho native. I'm originally born and raised in Washington State, southeastern Washington. My parents and grandparents both were part of the Manhattan Project and the Hanford site, so I'm very familiar with the nuclear industry. And I graduated from Richland High School, where our mascot was a mushroom cloud. We were the Richland High School Bombers. So my family and I moved here about 10 years ago to work with, I had the job of working with a radio station. My main goal in taking that job was community relations and building a bridge between the community and our radio station. And so I hit the ground running, and I have been absolutely delighted by the community that I've encountered here in Idaho Falls. Diversity can tend to be a bad word right now in our world, but Idaho Falls is incredibly diverse, from farmers and ranchers to engineers to private business owners, teachers and artists. And it has been a privilege and a pleasure to get to work among Idahoans. Over the last several years, I've been able to volunteer with Idaho Falls Rescue Mission, with various nonprofits in the area, bringing in events and concerts. And most recently, my husband and I started a real estate business, and so I've gotten to interact on a different level with different Idahoans. And so I've stepped into this race just to continue those relationships and continue the conversation, and hopefully take Idaho Falls voices to the Boise Capitol.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, we'll begin with our first question on education. This is a two-part question, but we'll split it into separate parts, so we'll just start with the first. What legislative steps would you support or oppose with regards to public school funding? And Kelly, we'll start with you.
Okay. The Idaho launch bill has been a controversial conversation since its inception. Everybody from saying it's socialism in its purest form, to people saying that we're giving Idaho students the head start that they need and keeping Idahoans in Idaho. I think the concept is fantastic. I think there are better steps than making it federally funded or state funded. I think that bringing some private dollars into that entire enterprise is probably a good idea. I think bringing, just some private interest into our secondary education is a really good idea.
Thank you. Sean.
So I'll just start off with the launch bill. It's been a very hot topic, as Kelly mentioned. I see the benefits of the launch bill, but I don't think it keeps those dollars in Idaho and invested in Idaho. I think that we could invest those finances better in earlier education, getting to education that focuses on real problems and real solutions, things that our children are going to face in their lives and their futures. We all know that earlier development is more effective than later development. I also think that we need to look at the disparity between public and private funding. Everyone sitting in the room, whether you send your children to private school or public school, is a taxpayer, and you all deserve your fair portion of that. We need to assess what percentage of that is funded by people that have kids in private education and what percentage of that is for public education, and give each portion their fair share. I also think we need to bring private business investment into workforce training.
Stephanie.
Idaho has the third best educational options in the entire country. We have numerous public education options. We allow homeschooling with no oversight, and people can obviously choose private education for their children. We passed a bill my first year in session where parents were allowed to send their children to any public school, anywhere they wanted. It wasn't based upon where they live. And so I think that we have really made great strides, especially in the last 10 years, to provide educational opportunities for children. I do not support taking your public tax dollars and giving them to private schools. I don't think that that's a good plan, and as we move forward, it's critical that we remain vigilant to improve our public education system.
All right, for part two, we'll carry on a theme that's been brought up already in this conversation. What is your position on the state funding support? What is your position on the state issuing funding support, such as tax credits or vouchers, to parents to pay for non-public school education? And Sean, we'll start with you on this one.
All right. As I mentioned, every one of us sitting in the room, whether our kids are in private or public schools, we all pay taxes. There's no reason that someone in public school should have to pay the taxes for someone in private school, and there's no reason that someone in private school should have to pay the taxes for someone in public school. So I think that if I'm elected, that I would like to get in and I would like to look at where the funding is at, what percentage of that comes from families that have kids in private school, and look at divvying that up and getting money back in the hands of citizens, representing them, representing our communities, and representing their choice.
Having been to multiple seminars about this very issue, I do not support public tax dollars going to fund people's private decisions. In the states that have adopted this, it has become a budget buster for those states. In Arizona, within a 2-year period, it went up 1,400% and is going to cost them almost $1 billion this year, and they're trying to figure out how to cover that shortfall. It's not fiscally responsible for me as your state legislator to start opening up that door. Currently, we do have an amendment to our Constitution that prohibits us from sending public tax dollars to private organizations and groups.
Long story short, I support a form of the dollars follow the kids. And that means if there is a homeschooler that is using public school sports teams, public school drama and music teams, then a portion of those dollars needs to go with the kid, both to the public school and to the homeschool. Having talked with several homeschoolers, they're very wary of getting money back from the government because they're afraid of the strings that might be attached. As Stephanie mentioned earlier, Idaho is very free when it comes to homeschooling, and they really want to keep homeschooling free of government overreach and meddling. And so it's a complicated topic, and I think there's definitely some more exploration that needs to be done on this.
Stephanie, the next question is for you. Well, for all of you, but for you first. This is on urban growth. Idaho's population has grown over the last 5 years. In your opinion, has the Idaho legislature done its part to manage the growth well, and what could we do better?
The growth in Bonneville County has been explosive over the last several years. Currently, though, of every dollar we send to the state, we are only getting 71 cents back for our transportation and infrastructure needs. So the state has not done its part. The Idaho Transportation Commission is sending a disproportionate share of your tax dollars to the Treasure Valley and not here. So we definitely need to do more to make sure that we have the funding for our roads and bridges and infrastructure that we need. And we need to make sure that we have a good growth plan for growing communities so that they have the infrastructure that they need.
Living out in Ammon and kind of watching that particular area of development, I don't feel like it's been handled on a city or a state level well. Ammon Road's one of those roads that probably should have been widened a decade, maybe 2 decades ago. There's many days that I'll see that road backed up from First Street all the way almost to Sunnyside during rush hour traffic. That's not safe for our communities, that's not convenient for our transport, and nobody likes dealing with that long of line at any of those lights. So we need to get to focusing on building up our infrastructure, making it sustainable for our future, not just fixing it for now, but making it ready for our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, and generations to come. There's a couple bills that I've worked on. One relates to the hemp retail industry around the hemp right now, and that implements a 3% use tax, 1.5% that would go to infrastructure and 1.5% to education.
2020 started kind of revealing what we're dealing with here, and it started that first week when every student in Idaho Falls, every student across Idaho was home and tried to log on to the internet at the same time. And if anybody had students in school at that time, everything crashed. And I think that just kind of, that revealed some weaknesses within our infrastructure, not only roads and bridges like Sean has touched on, but internet, and then we're looking at sewer, water, all of the things that we're dealing with here in Idaho Falls, but then also across Idaho. We have experienced more growth than just about any other state in the country. We're over 40,000 houses short of the citizens that are moving into Idaho. And so as much as people want to keep Idaho and close all the borders down, there's a whole lot of people that are moving in, and we need to address that as well.
Excellent. Kelly, we'll start with you on this next question. This is on housing. Shortly after the state and nation recovered from COVID, we experienced a significant housing shortage, which made it difficult for new employees to find housing. What role do you believe the state can and should play in helping to provide affordable housing solutions?
Good segue. One of the biggest things that we see right now is the land crunch that we have here in Idaho. There is so much federal land that is untouchable to builders. And so as builders come in, the only land that is available to build on is privately owned. And so we are faced with the question of, do we convert farmland and possibly lose that farm ground, or do we, where do we develop in order to enable that growth? And so I think it starts with getting some of Idaho land back in the hands of Idaho from the federal government.
Thank you. Sean?
One of the things that I see as an issue when it comes to housing and our housing shortage is we see a lot of developers coming in that are being given incentives to develop in our cities and not putting a fair portion back. In Ammon, we had a developer recently out of Utah that wanted to come in and build a large multi-housing complex, or multi-level housing complex, and didn't really want to invest back in our community, in our infrastructure. And that's something that we need to address. If we're going to be able to sustain that housing, I don't think it's on the government to provide affordable housing. That starts to touch on the lines of socialism. We need to have builders and bring in developers that want to invest in our communities.
I think we've all been touched by the housing crisis that has hit us over the last several years. We've had 6% year-over-year growth in Idaho from an influx of out-of-staters. It becomes very critical that we have good plans on the city and the county level for that building. And what we have seen in Bonneville County specifically is we've been very, very short-sighted and not made good long-term plans. And so then you have people going out into the counties and all taking their piece of the world. But what happens is they don't really have the water rights for it, and they don't have the ability to really take care of that, so then it becomes a nuisance. We need to make sure that we have good plans where people have to hook into city water and city sewer, because if we're making a half-acre lot and then we put in a sewer and we put in a well, it becomes a health issue for us. Launch will also help with this. We have had very few people trained in the trades, and having more people trained in the trades will make a difference for housing for every Idahoan.
Sean, will you take this next question, and then we'll go down. This is on agriculture and water, again, carrying on where we just left off. What do you think are the major issues facing agriculture in our region, including water resources, and how can the legislature do more to protect and support the agriculture sector?
One of the biggest factors I think we see, and it's a really hot topic, is the discussion of removing our dams. That doesn't just touch on our water preservation, that also touches on our energy infrastructure. I think that's bad policy, and we shouldn't even consider it. It shouldn't be on the table. I would like to, regarding our agricultural industry, I think we do a great job in Idaho already at supporting that, and I think kind of just maintaining and reinforcing the current policies is a great route forward on that.
Stephanie?
Well, Idaho is the top agriculture is the top economic leader in our state. For those of you who probably don't know, right now we are facing the biggest curtailment of groundwater rights ever in the history of Idaho, which would probably, the letters may start to go out either tomorrow or next week. So agriculture is under immense pressure right now in connection with water, and we need to make sure that we have a good forward-thinking plan for how we are going to manage this finite resource for not only today's generation, but future generations. We also need to make sure that we don't over-regulate. One of the things that we have seen as potato farmers is the amount of regulation that is being placed upon us each and every day just seems to pile up, and that drives up the cost of our food. So we need to be very thoughtful thinking as we make laws that we recognize that it does have consequences, and it will have consequences on our food security issues for people in the United States.
Kelly?
The groundwater situation is something that needs to be considered as we are looking at our housing issue. As we're looking at land and where to build, we also need to be considering water. It's a finite resource, and we need to be preserving that. I agree with Sean that dams are a fantastic resource, and they have no business being removed. Also, the wind farm situation, interfering with our groundwater, we need to be dealing with that, not allowing those wind farms to interfere with our farmers' livelihoods. And also, I don't think more legislation needs to be on the table. I think less legislation needs to be on the table when it comes to our farmers and our ag industry.
Thank you. Stephanie, on taxes. Two common requests from Republican voters are lower taxes and less regulation. If elected, what areas do you see to pursue these two goals?
Well, over the last 2 years, I've worked really hard on this very issue. I was a co-sponsor of House Bill 292, which gave the biggest property tax relief in the history of Idaho, which lowered your property taxes. I also co-sponsored the bill this year, 521, that not only infused money for local schools to have facility needs met, but it also lowered the effective tax rate from 5.8 down to 5.695. So I have been very forward-thinking in working to lower your taxes, and as we continue to grow and have more people participate in the system, we should be able to continue to lower the taxes for all Idahoans.
I'm very much anti-taxing Idahoans. I'm one of those people that believes that the money is best served in the hands of our citizens. So although I don't have a ton of experience and knowledge on this side of the legislation right now, I know we've all felt the burden of our tax bills. A lot of that is outside of the control of our assessors. It's outside of our control entirely, because we've watched those property values increase because of that increase in population, that increase in people moving from other states, buying up cheap housing, driving up the prices, reselling at those new prices, just forcing those land prices up. 2018, I bought my home in Ammon for $140,000. It's appraised for $254,000, and I've had a dozen realtors tell me I could get $325,000. So that's something that we need to address, whether that be, working on lowering taxes in other levels, reducing spending to put more money back in the pockets of citizens, or addressing the property taxes themselves.
The two areas of taxes that I would vote to hopefully eliminate, if not reduce drastically, would be grocery tax and property taxes, specifically property taxes for seniors on fixed incomes. I've talked with so many Idahoans, specifically here in Bonneville County, who they bought their house, it's paid for, they bought it for $100,000, it's now been assessed or appraised at over $400,000, and they're looking at losing their home in their 60s because of the taxes. And so property taxes definitely need to be transparent. There's an awful lot of situations where assessors come in and they will affix an assessment to a property, and there's no data points for how number came to be. So that needs to be much more transparent. Grocery taxes, if there is any way to eliminate that from Idaho, I am all for that. Idahoans are struggling enough right now in the economy. We need to cut that down.
Excellent. Our next topic will be women's reproductive health. The 2022 Idaho Republican platform states, quote, "We affirm that abortion is murder from the moment of fertilization. There have been a number of news reports suggesting that the next legislative session will see proposed legislation related to abortion. This is a two-part question. While we do not know what form a bill would take, would you strongly consider a bill that makes it legally clear and easier for healthcare professionals to perform an abortion when the life or health of a mother is in serious jeopardy? And two, is it your position that in vitro fertilization, where multiple fertilized eggs will be unused, involves murder and should be illegal in Idaho?"
At the same time.
If you want me to repeat part of it, I can.
No, it's fine.
Okay, we'll take both of them.
Okay. If you guys have checked out my website, I am definitely very pro-life. And so I agree with the Idaho abortion law as it stands right now. I've been speaking with Idaho Chooses Life and reading the actual law where there are exceptions for health of the mother and rape and incest. And so there's been an awful lot of talk about that particular law, and I would encourage anybody who's interested to read the actual verbiage of the law who's curious about it. As far as the in vitro fertilization, I have not done a whole lot of research on that, and so I hesitate to comment on that.
Okay.
All right. In regards to abortion and the rare exception over matters like health, rape, and incest, I absolutely support those protections. And the biggest reason is I don't want to ever see a black market on abortions, and anytime we've banned anything in America, it's resulted in a black market being created. I don't want to see what that looks like. I don't want any female, any child, anyone to have to go through that experience. So I do believe we need to protect those exceptional circumstances. In regards to the in vitro fertilization, I'm kind of in the same boat as Kelly. That's something I don't have enough knowledge on, so I'm going to pass on commenting on that one.
I think it's very legally unclear as to whether doctors can actually treat for the life and health of the mother. Contrary to what has been said, that's part of the reason why we're in front of the United States Supreme Court and awaiting a decision. I am pro-life. I love my children and I love my grandchildren. We absolutely need to protect the life of the mother. In the past 2 years, within my own family, my daughter and a niece have had to have medical intervention in the midst of a pregnancy. We must add health of the mother to our abortion statutes. I am pro-life, I do not support elective abortions, and we need to make sure that our doctors are not criminalized for protecting the life and health of the mother. And when you say we don't have a problem, St. Luke's in Boise life flights women out of state because it is so vague and unclear that they do not legally feel like that they can safely treat these women. So we have got to correct that situation.
Thank you. Well, now we've finished. Oh, go ahead.
Just for the IVF, right now they did a law in Mississippi that actually made it so from the minute an egg and a sperm came together that they were actually treated as life. And so then people were saying, well, you've got to go implant every single one of those eggs because if you let those eggs go, then that was, you were killing a human life. And I think we need to be very careful before we go down that road.
Thank you. We have run out of time for this portion of our forum, so we will now go to closing statements. And Sean, if we could start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Again, thank you for the Chamber of Commerce putting this on, East Idaho News for live streaming it and being here. If anybody has any questions, I'll stick around for a while after this. Feel free to come talk to me. If you want any knowledge about my platform, who I am, feel free to reach out. I've answered a lot of the various questionnaires and stuff for Ballotpedia, Vote 411, Bonneville County Republican Committee, East Idaho News. I believe in transparent governance, and that's who I am. So feel free to come talk to me and come reach out.
Stephanie.
The greatest thing about the legislature is the varied experiences that the different legislators bring along with a specialized skill set. The value I bring for our community to Boise is my experience with agriculture, education, water, healthcare, and families. There have been people in this community that have called into question whether I'm a Republican. I was born a Republican. The first campaign I worked on in high school for Governor Butch Otter, who was actually running as lieutenant governor at the time. I signed the loyalty and affiliation pledge to the Republican Party in 2022. The question becomes, how many times do I need to sign that I'm loyal and have an affiliation for the Republican Party? I believe that voters have the ultimate tools of censorship of elected officials. I will never support a small special interest group having the ability to remove an individual's ability to affiliate with their political party of choice. A real Republican doesn't demand loyalty, they earn it by their actions. I have fiercely defended our teachers, helped cut taxes, removed red tape, stopped government overreach, and supported families. Strong families build strong communities. Knowing our community voice has been lost in the last several years within our community, me and several other legislators, along with community leaders, actually fielded 49 of the 51 precincts in Bonneville County. So I would encourage you to go and look at ilovebonneville.com to find individuals that want to build our community and our party. I would ask for your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Kelly.
Well, as this may be the last opportunity to address any kind of public forum, come May 22nd, the three of us, there will be one representative and two constituents. And my hope is that starting on May 22nd, we as a community can begin to come together as Idahoans, as Americans, and as Republicans, as conservatives. This has been it's been a heck of a run, and I am honored to be able to sit at a table with these two people and have civil dialogue. There's been a whole lot of voices in a lot of different forums, and it has been a privilege to be able to have discourse with these two people. And at the very beginning of this, when I stepped into the race, I was blown away at the honor of being able to be an American and fill out a piece of paper and pay a filing fee and step in and say, hey, I want my voice to be heard. And I think it's an amazing privilege of being an American that anybody with the courage to step in and something to say can run for office. And so regardless of how any of these races come out on Tuesday evening, my hope is that this community can begin to come together, that we can unify, and that we can, to coin a Trumpism, make Idaho great again. I don't want to see it divided. I don't want to see Republicans against Republicans, conservatives against conservatives, or Idahoans against Idahoans. We have an amazing state here, and it's worth preserving, it's worth fighting for. And like Stephanie said, I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday. One of us is going to come out, and I think the hope is that the three of us can hear each other out and continue to have civil discourse throughout the next couple of years, couple months. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and that concludes this session. Thank you. We'll invite the